All right, welcome back to the program. Johnson Chukwu, the Group Managing Director of Cowry Asset Management, is joining me from Lagos. Mr. Chukwu, good morning to you and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Nancy, and thank you for having me.
Okay, this your smile. Why is it broad when Nigerians are crying? Are you not part of those in recession?
I am, but interestingly, I most expected it. So it was like an issue that you knew was going to happen. And when you are prepared for it, you don't cry too much. I would say that we should not cry like those who had no faith. But the reality is that I most expected that we're going to go into recession. Anybody who has been following the economic development would have expected that the economy will go into recession. I mean, the Minister of Finance has said repeatedly that we should expect the economy to go into recession. The CBN governor has said it. All economic analysts we are in unison that the economy was going to contract in the second and third quarter, and that will imply that the economy has gone into recession.
How do you prepare for an economy that is going into a recession? For some people, they will say that Nigeria has already been in a recession since, that we can't even say this was when we lived in a world of plenty. Even during the last administration or even previous administrations, when the economy was growing by 6, 7, 8%, it was still a growth of it was a jobless growth, so it was just favoring a few people. So the economy has always been in a recession. So how do you tell people to prepare for a recession? An average Nigerian to prepare for a recession, an average Nigerian that scrambles for his daily livelihood?
Well, Nancy, let me tell you, the truth is that the economy, when it was growing at 6, 7%, was not in any way in a recession. In the economy, people said some said they were not feeling the impact of the economy. But we knew at that point, we even had things like what they call consumer credit. You could see on the streets of Lagos and Abuja, young ladies and young men buying new cars, getting loans to buy new cars. Standard of living was quite higher than what it is today. We've seen a gradual and constant deterioration in our standard of living. We've seen a GDP that has been growing at below the population growth rate. So anybody with a benefit of hindsight can look back and say, we were living in the one we were complaining, because we are now living with the reality that the economy has been consistently contracting. Because when your economy is growing at a rate that is below your population growth rate, you are seeing an increase in the incidence of poverty. You are seeing an increase in the level of deprivation, and that is what Nigerians are dealing with. But back to the issue is that, okay, we've always dealt with the economy has always been in recession. The GDP report is a report of the past event in present day. So remember we're reporting the third quarter GDP, which actually ended on September 30th. So people had actually felt a sense of economic loss as far back as starting from July to the month of September. I mean, the crisis actually plateaued in the second quarter of this year. So when you see the report of 3.62% contraction in the GDP, it's a report of the past in present times. It's not the GDP, the contraction didn't just happen today. It happened in the 3 months of July to September, and we're just reporting it in November. So I can relate with those who are saying, okay, we've always been in recession. Yes, the economy has been contracting at a severe rate since the beginning of the second quarter of this year. But even when the economy was growing, it was growing at a rate that was far below the population growth rate. Look at your mind back to 2016. The economy contracted by 0.15, by 1.58%. At that same time, the population grew by about 3%. In 2017, the economy grew by 0.82%. The population was still growing by about 3%. In 2018, the economy only grew by 1.91%, population 3% growth. And then in the best year we've seen in recent past was 2019, when the economy grew by 2.27%, population grew by more than 3%. So over this period, we've seen a population, so per capita income has been declining. And that's why Nigerians are feeling, why are you talking of recession? My economic condition has been worsening considerably over this period of time. So I've been in recession all this while, because on a per capita basis, we have actually been in recession for the past 4 years.
What exactly do you think is the problem? Because like I said yesterday on the program, is it that this government is unlucky, that some of its policies, one would say good policies, social welfare scheme, interventionist approach, yet it seems not to be working? So would you say that it's unlucky to have 2 recessions in 4 years, at least since my life? since I've grown. This is the first time that I'm seeing this kind of thing. Even when we had 2008 financial recession globally, Nigeria did not go into a recession. One would argue we had savings then. The economy was a bit better. So would you say that is a bit unlucky? Luck? Or would you attribute it to not too right policies that are not too right? Or are they right but coming at the wrong time? Or are they wrong policies coming at the right time? Then number 3, is it because that whenever oil price sneezes, we catch a cold? Or number 4, is it COVID-19?
Okay, unfortunately, I didn't hear everything you said. I heard up to the point where you said, is it a matter of luck? The government has been unfortunate that the economy has gone into
Okay, Mr. Chukwu, can you hear me so that I'll repeat that question again?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
What I asked earlier was, is it as a result, what we're seeing right now, is it as a result of, you're seeing 2 recessions in 4 years?
Audio.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now, Mr. Chukwu? Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you when you just asked me, can I hear you?
Okay. Is it just luck, or is it as a result of bad policies, or is it as a result of oil price dwindling, or COVID-19 pandemic?
Okay, Nase, I didn't hear what you asked, but let me take up to the point where you said what you said earlier. But let your people work on the audio so I can hear you properly. Next question. What you said is that, what I heard up to the point I heard is that, you see, it's a matter of luck. This current government administration has been very unlucky that the economy is going to recession on twice within a life of 5 years of the administration. And I was smiling when you said that, because I know that economic progress, economic development is not a function of providence. It's a function of planning. It's a function of execution of plans. It's a function of the quality of plans and where those plans are interlinked and interrelated to the structure of that economy. If you look at our economy, and I'm going to take you just to our next door neighbor, Ghana. I look at our economy. In 2009, the agriculture accounted for 30.9% of the Ghanaian economy. Today, agriculture accounts for only 18.3% of the Ghanaian economy. At that time, manufacturing sector accounted for just 18% of the Ghanaian economy. The manufacturing sector accounted for 32% of the Ghanaian economy. Ghana's population is just about less than 30 million. What Ghana has done is that they've shifted from extractive industry to the mid-level of industrialization. They've expanded the industrial sector to 32% of their GDP. What is our manufacturing sector today? Our manufacturing sector is less than 9% of our GDP. And because Ghana has, in effect, within a period of 10 years, it is structured in a period of 20 years, it is structured their economy. The framework of the economy is so that it's creating jobs. And that's why Ghana is not dealing with the level of unemployment that we're dealing with. Ghanaian economy grew last year at 6.11%. Our economy, which was the best growth I had mentioned earlier, grew by 2.27% last year. So in the past 4 years, we've seen a very timid and delicate growth in the economy. And we knew that the level of growth in the economy was such that anything could have tipped it. And when you mentioned the issue of COVID, it was certain that the economy couldn't take any shock because the economy had been growing at a very anemic rate. If the Ghanaian economy is projected to grow almost about 2% this year, at a time when our economy, in the third quarter of this year, our economy has, year to date, has contracted by 2.48%. So it is not a matter of providence. It's about the economic policy that that country has enunciated, has driven, and how those things fit into the structure of the economy. So I do not want to blame it to the rain or the sun. It has to do with our policy. And if we get the policies right, the economy will begin to grow. We've seen this economy grew at 7.5% year in, year out for more than 10 years. It is possible we can actually grow at much higher, faster rate than that. Look at the telecommunication sector today. Is it a matter of providence that the telecommunication sector now accounts for 13.8% of the GDP? Or that sector grew by 14.5% at a time when the other sectors were growing? Just cast your mind back and consider, had it been that we did not adopt the opening of the telecommunication sector by selling GSM licenses to operators, and then we were still relying on NITEL, do you think that sector will still be accounting for 13.8% of the GDP, or that sector could have grown at a time when most other sectors contracted? So it's all a matter of policy choices. Get the policies right, and then your economy will begin to grow. And I'm just using again, I can give you Indian example, I can give you Chinese example. Nancy, economic development is not a function of luck. It is a function of the policies that the government at different levels implement.
You know, I had to bring in the issue of luck because if you're taking a look at this recession, of course, the worst, in fact, some economists have called it a severe recession, though it was below expectation, because even the Nigerian government thought that the country would go into like an 8% recession. I think, is it the World Bank or IMF that said that Nigeria should expect a 5%, minus 5% economic recession. But we entered a minus 3.6% contraction. Where I'm actually going to why I asked the question of luck is because also was it 1983 when when President Buhari then was a military man, the economy also did not find it easy at that point. Inflation was high and all of that. So that's why I said, is it a stroke of luck for President Buhari, who was a military man then, and now a democratic president, seeing all of this? 2 recessions in like 4 years, the worst in 33 years, inflation very stubborn. At this point in time, inflation that we saw trending downwards all of a sudden just came up. So since you said it's not a matter of luck, where would you also put in some exogenous factors, like oil price? In 2016, oil price dwindled, we went down with it. This year again, oil price dwindled, we went down with it.
Nancy, when I started shaking my head was to indicate that I wasn't hearing you again. Like I said, people need to work on the...
Okay. I don't know. Should we take a break, Mr. Chukwu?
Part of the questions you asked, and I think it's just the heart of the question, that in 1983, December, the President Buhari became a military head of state. And between that time up to 1984, the economy went into a recession. And that, again, as a civilian president, the economy has gone into recessions under his watch. That is it that he's unlucky, that he comes when extraneous factors now upturn the economic trajectory. You see, the truth is about the economy going into recession. Economies that are growing very fast do not suddenly go into recession. It's economies that are going slowly that go into recession. I was a very smart young boy when you're talking of, in 84. But with my study of economic issues, we knew that under the Shagari government, there was already severe economic pressures, that the economy was going through very difficult time before the president, before Major General Muhammadu Buhari took over with Brigadier Diagbo. And one of the excuses they gave was that they were going to turn around the economy because the economy was in a very precarious state. So it wasn't strange that either their policy choices were wrong or they were not effective enough, that the economy went into recession in 1984, which was the excuse that then Major General Ibrahim Babangida Young used to overthrow them. But the basic thing I want us to understand is that success is a matter of choices. If you get the choices wrong, you will end up with a wrong outcome. And I give you a classic example of what happened to me on a lighter note on Thursday. I had a 12:50 flight to catch to the east. And I took off from my house in Lekki by 10, but I now took a Eco Bridge. At some point, my driver said, let's go, since we have been in traffic for so long and it's almost 12 noon, let's go turn and go and take Third Mainland Bridge. Would I go and stand there until it is 12 when they open the bridge? I just said, look, there was no point that when you get to that bridge, they won't open it until around 1. Do you know, Nancy, I didn't get to the airport until 4 p.m. on Thursday. I missed the first flight, I missed the second flight. But the driver that was supposed to bring something to me at the airport waited at the foot of the Third Mainland Bridge until it was opened for outgoing traffic. And they got to the airport before 2 and was calling me that he got to the airport. So I made the wrong choice and ended up with the wrong outcome. So what I'm just emphasizing is that, look, economic progress or even progress as an individual, as in life, is a function of choices you make. So if we have made the right choices, you are not going to see an economy that will go into recession. I'm not sure Indian economy is not going to go into recession. COVID-19 started in China. Chinese economy is not going to go into recession. I just mentioned your next door neighbor here, Ghana, that its economy in 2017 grew by over 8%, 8.7%. In 2019, it grew. In 2018, it grew by about 6.26%, and last year it grew by 6.11%. So the impact, as the COVID hit all the countries in the world, the impact of that unfortunate rate could not take them to the negative. They're going to end up with a marginal growth of about close to 2% this year. And that's the key thing. If we are growing at 7.5%, 8%, which is where we should be, because I always said in your program, we don't have a sector that has matured. All the sectors bold growth opportunities. What we need to get the policies right, get the incentive system right, scheme right, and these sectors will be growing at close to 10%. China has proven it, where its economy grew above 10% for more than 30 years. India is almost replicating the same thing. So we should sit back and ask ourselves, where did we get it wrong? Where did the rain start beating us? And I must also tell you that I was happy when I looked at some snippets of the Finance Act, 2020 Finance Bill, and I felt that the government is beginning to think appropriately. Some of the things I told my wife this morning is, I told her, look, the reality is that the government is beginning to take the right economic policies. The impact may not happen immediately.
What policies are those? Because I was also coming to that.
Okay, what are those policies?
Yes, that you mentioned. Yes.
Take, for instance, the issue of petroleum subsidy. Yes, they've not gone the whole hog, which will require to bring in a free market environment in the petroleum distribution business, where you have several sellers and several buyers. Today, we have NNPs as a near monopoly because they are only able to have access to foreign currencies. But again, there are still also subsidies built along the value chain. Petroleum Equalization Fund is still subsidized, so it's still a form of subsidy. We need to take out those things. The government needs to take the bold step to have a full deregulation of that sector. If we do that, maybe in the next 1 year, you're going to see competition drive down the price of petroleum products, because you're going to see Moneyline refineries will come up, or as well as industrial refineries will come up. And that will address the issue of, one, employment, two, demand on foreign exchange. So we're going to conserve foreign exchange that is currently spent. And we may even get to the point where we have excess supply, we'll export. Just like what's happening in the cement industry, where the likes of Dangote Cement, Bua Cement are beginning to export to other African countries. Remember, we used to be a major importer of cement. But because of the right policies, Dangote didn't go and do a cement factory because without any incentive. The government of President government gave the appropriate policy environment that led to people going into the cement industry. That is one sector we can have as a proof of concept, that with the right policies, you can grow several of these moribund or ineffective or non-functioning sectors of the economy into titans that will begin to dominate the African space. So we're going to see that. So we need to follow through. The government needs to follow through and go the whole hog in deregulating the downstream sector so that we can get the full benefit. If we don't complete the deregulation, you're not going to see any of the benefits. The other aspect is the issue of power sector reforms. The government has now come up with what they call service reflective tariff, which I think the government must make sure that NEC, Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, has the capacity to bite and then enforce some of the post-privatization conditionalities that were imposed on the discos, so that, one, they will actually need to invest in their distribution grids, improve on their the metering process, improve on the transformer availability, and then as well as the offtake of power that's supplied from the generation companies and the transmission company. If we do that, you're going to see improvement in the availability of power supply, reduce the cost of doing business, and reduce the cost of operation of these businesses, and then improve productivity.
Okay.
So that, for me, is one of those things. And the third factor which I mentioned is the finance bill. The finance bill, if you look at it, one of the burdens I keep asking that is, anybody looking at this, is at what they call minimum tax. They impose a certain percentage of your turnover on as tax, as corporate tax to companies, even when the companies are making losses. A company that is dying, making losses, you impose minimum tax on them. And some businesses have high turnover, low margin, like the petroleum distribution businesses. But you know, my wife is into that segment. You could actually have a turnover of 4 billion, your profit is 10 million. And then somebody comes to you and says, look, the 10 million profit you made is either you have understated your profit or they impose a minimum tax on you. And then maybe the minimum tax comes to something like 50 million. So do they expect to go and borrow money and pay minimum tax? What do? Your business goes down, you shut down, and then the loss of employment. So the government has said under the finance bill that they're going to reduce the minimum tax by 50%, which for me is very key. The other aspect is reduction in customs duties. They're talking about reduction of up to 35%, means 50% of customs duties. Because you keep imposing taxes on businesses that are struggling to survive. And then if they can't survive, what they shut down and there's loss of employment. So that piece of legislation for me is one of the most fundamental change in the direction, in the philosophy of the government as far as I can see.
Okay, let's talk about one angle or another, one angle on the tripod, talking about monetary policy. The meeting will end today at about 2 p.m., 2:30 p.m. Nigerian time. We should be getting the decisions from Emefiele and his colleagues. Do you think that the MPC has really run out of options? Don't forget, at the September meeting, the MPR was dropped to 11.5%, which was a surprise move. Do you think they've really run out of options compared to other African peers? I think Egypt, for example, dropped rates drastically. South Africa, before COVID hit, dropped rates. We also know that South Africa is in a recession. So what kind of approach should the MPC, the Monetary Authority, take right now? And don't forget that these monetary authorities are also involved in interventions, the National Economic Sustainability Plan. Mr. Chukwu, you can't hear me anymore?
I can't hear you again.
Okay.
I got up to the point where you talked of South Africa dropping rates drastically, and that's where I lost from that point.
Okay. What I'm asking is, what other approach, what other choices? Oh, okay. Should we take a break and see if we can fix that audio? Guys, let's quickly take a break and see if we can fix that audio to take the remaining few minutes before the end of the show. Please keep your messages coming in on all our social media handles. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Mr. Chukwu, can you hear me now?
Yes, I heard you.
Okay, I was asking earlier if the MPC has really run out of options compared to other African central banks. Don't also forget that our own central bank has been involved in a lot of interventionist measures. The National Economic Sustainability Plan, 2.3 trillion naira, a large percentage of it is financed by the Central Bank of Nigeria in terms of interventions. 11.5% MPR rate that was surprisingly dropped in September. What other options are available right now?
Nancy, if you recall, while the central bank governor was making that announcement for the last MPC decisions, he said that the Monetary Policy Committee had to face policy dilemma. And the policy, I think that policy dilemma had actually heightened at the current time. At that point, when he made that announcement, the inflation rate was still less than 13%. It was about 13%. Today, we have an inflation rate of 14.23%. There's also a study that the inflation rate could go beyond that. At the same time, we didn't have the GDP figure that also indicated that the economy has contracted by 3.62% in the third quarter. Cumulatively, the economy has contracted by 2.48% year to date. And you're also dealing with severe foreign exchange pressure. If you look at what's happening in the parallel market, I understand the exchange rate has gone above 480 naira to a dollar. So these are issues that the Monetary Policy Committee will consider, and they are divergent and diametrically opposing issues. For instance, if you want to deal with the issue of further stability in the economy, you're talking about further loosening, and they just loosened by 100 basis points in the last meeting 2 months ago. And I'm not sure that has led to a major uptick in credit availability, because the factor that drives credit in the country is also different from what drives credit in other countries. And that you have to consider the fact that we really don't have the structure of an economy like South African economy. The transmission channel for monetary policies in Nigeria is very weak.
Okay.
And
okay, just before we go, because we have 2 minutes to the end, what do you expect? Do you expect a hold, a raise, or a drop?
Nancy, can you come again? I didn't get your
Okay,
question.
what do you expect at the end of today's meeting? Do you expect the MPC to hold their rates, or drop it, or raise it?
I just think yes.
Okay. Do you expect the MPC to drop the rates, or hold, or raise the rates? Can you hear me now? You still can't hear me.
Yeah, your voice is just coming in and going out.
Okay, I really don't know. Okay, let's try once more just before we go. Do you think that the MPC will drop, hold, or raise the rates?
I couldn't hear you. Maybe should just round up what I was saying.
Okay. Okay.
So what I was saying. Okay, I can hear you. Go ahead. Let's see if you can.
Okay. Is it a raise, a drop, or a hold for you? Mr. Chukwu,
Yeah.
I think technology is not helping us right now. Okay.
Just to round up what I was saying, the options they have are limited. I do not think they would want to adopt any of those two options, either to loosen or to tighten. So the most, if I'm to talk, I would say that the most appropriate policy decision that they will take is to hold rates at the current levels, because loosening will impose further pressures on the FX exchange rate and reserve, also further put pressure on the inflation rate. And tightening, you can't really think of tightening at all at the time when the economy has gone into recession. That would be unthinkable. So I think they would rather hold rates at current levels. Whether they have run out of options, the options we have because of the structural economy are very limited. And that's why if you look at the CBN management of the monetary policy, they are highly dependent on minimum finance initiatives. That's the only way they can channel credit to the market at the rate they intend. Because outside the minimum finance initiatives, you really can't get the banks to lend at 5% today. And I do not know what monetary policy the central bank can adopt that will make banks lend at such rates, other than to the central bank to provide the funding.
Okay, Mr. Chukwu, I think we'll leave it at that, because I wanted to ask you one other question, but I don't know if you can hear me now. Can you? Apparently you cannot. All right, Mr. Chukwu, thank you very much for joining us on today's edition of the program. Let's watch out what the MPC will do, and let's watch out what fiscal policymakers will do. The Minister of Finance has actually, she's optimistic that the nation will get out of this recession in the first quarter of 2021. Let's see how it goes. Thank you all for being a part of the show today. Please keep the conversation online. I will see you all tomorrow, God willing. I am Nancy Najibi, the best of you.